So last season, I made a video talking about the Anaheim Ducks and how they were having an amazing season and how the future was so bright ahead. But now, about a year later, another bad season. And this is really just like the complete opposite of what last year was. Last year was so good. This team was incredible. Like, they were winning games. They were fun to watch. And now, we're almost halfway through the season, and they have less than 10 wins. And not only do they have less than 10 wins, they only have one regulation win. Yeah, only one, which is absolutely unbelievable. So you look at some stats here. In 29 games played, the Ducks are 7-19-3 for just 17 points. They're dead last in the NHL by a lot, if I'm correct. They have only scored 70 goals, but they've let in 123. And they only have one regulation win, as I said, and it's against the New York Rangers 3-2. So all of their other 6 wins have been in overtime or shootout scenarios. So, and like, honestly, like, many people look at those games as like coin flips. Like, they could go any other way. And of course, 6 of them went to the Anaheim Ducks, which is crazy. Like, when you think about it, like, you're halfway through the year and you only have one regulation win. That is just mind-blowing. We haven't seen anything like this since, I think, Arizona back in 2017. So about 5 years. A 5-year gap in between this. I just think this is crazy. Like, this team was looked at to be much better this year, and now they've kind of taken a step backwards, judging by the looks of it. Now, it's not all of them. There are some injuries on this team. Obviously, you look here, you have John Klingberg is out, John Moore is out, Isaac Lundestrom is out, and Jamie Drysdale is also out. Obviously, 3 of those 4 are really big and key pieces to that blue line. However, they're not on the team, and they're hurt, and, I mean, like, it's really kind of taken the toll on them. You could blame it on that. You could blame it on the Ducks as a whole. You could kind of go any other way, and now this team kind of has a lot to think about heading into this year's trade deadline, 100%. So, you take a look at their leading scorers. You start off here with Troy Terry, proving that last year wasn't a fluke when he was playing absolutely unbelievable. 11 goals, 16 assists for 27 points in just 29 games played. So obviously there, he's not having the season that he had last year, but he's still playing at a pretty good level, comparatively speaking. And I honestly had my doubts when he played really well last season. I thought, oh yeah, this is just going to be a one-off year. And I thought the same about Tage Thompson too, but guess I was wrong about both of them. So obviously Terry's looked pretty good. Again, not as good as last season, but still really solid. You look at Trevor Zegras, who in his sophomore season has looked relatively underwhelming, if we're being honest. 10 goals, 13 assists for 23 points in just 29 games played. Obviously, I don't know what just happened there. Obviously, you know, he's in his second year. The sophomore slump does exist. It's happened to many different players around the NHL, so it's not just Zegras. But obviously, like, it is kind of concerning that he's not playing at the level he did last year, but he's still relatively young, so it's okay. And obviously, he's great for marketing. He's on the cover of NHL 23, so, I mean, why not? Third in scoring, however, is Cam Fowler. 3 goals, 12 assists for 15 points. You see a massive gap there in between point scores. From 23 to 15, that's nearly a 10-point difference, which is pretty surreal. In 28 games played. So obviously Fowler's having a really good season so far, playing all right on that Ducks blue line, racking up the assists from goals like Terry and Zegras, obviously playing really good. And with a lot of those injuries on the blue line, it's given Fowler the opportunity to play on the first pairing, which is where he's played the past couple of games. But we'll get into the blue line in a little bit. Fourth in scoring is Adam Henrique, who has been in trade rumors for a little bit now. 8 goals, 6 assists for 14 points in just 28 games played. Again, going back to the trade rumors, you know, Henrique, he's been in them for a little bit. If there was a year where he was going to get traded, it's probably this year. If I'm correct, he's on the last year of his contract, so he's likely going to walk come free agency. I mean, like, we'll see, but maybe the Ducks will try and get some assets back for them. Obviously, Henrique's an all right goal scorer, would be an all right fourth line player to have on your team, not like one of those big X factor deadline players, but definitely a pretty solid like fourth liner and could play pretty well on like a pretty stacked team, and provide some secondary scoring. Um, like let's say the Colorado Avalanche, for example, they're the first that comes to mind. I mean, they won the Stanley Cup. They had so many guys down below, like Nico Sturm. That's just the first name and the biggest one that comes to mind. And this obviously this team, they have a lot of work to do. So why not give up some of these assets and get more, if that makes any sense? And they've done deals with Colorado before, so it makes sense. Fifth in scoring is Ryan Strome, and Strome was one of those big free agent acquisitions that was looked at this offseason. However, he's kind of lived up to that, but he really hasn't, comparatively speaking. 7 goals, 7 assists for 14 points in just 29 games played. He was added to be that like second line center and play really good for Anaheim and kind of be that next, I don't want to say the next Ryan Getzlaf, but the next solid center on that team, and he really hasn't turned out to be that so far this year. But again, it is early, and this team has definitely struggled 100%. So moving out of the top 5, moving on to some other players that I've looked at. You have Frank Vatrano. He has 4 goals, 6 assists for 10 points in 29 games played. Obviously, another one of those acquisitions that was acquired in the offseason, so they're definitely looking at him saying, I mean, he really wasn't like known for a huge point scorer, so I guess this is kind of the right secondary scoring we expected out of him, but I think he would honestly like to be better. Another player that's kind of declined over the past couple of years, Max Comtois. I remember when this guy was like in 2021 when the Ducks team was god awful. I remember he was pretty good. He was actually really solid on this Anaheim team. I know they had a lot of different players mixed through that lineup before Zegras came in and obviously established himself. But still, he looked pretty good. But so far this year, 5 goals, and that's it in 18 games played. So he's obviously missed a little bit, but that is still kind of concerning when you're Anaheim. Maybe they would think about trading him away too, but who would want someone like Comtois who's kind of declined over the years? That's kind of why I think of it. Mason McTavish here, another one of the rookies, was looked at to be a big Calder winner this season. Hasn't really turned out to be that so far. 4 goals, 10 assists for 14 points in 29 games played. He's looked solid, but not like insane level that people thought he was going to be. And obviously, some rookies take more than others to develop. So obviously that could play a big role in it, but we'll see. Next up here, Kevin Shattenkirk. Moving on to some other defensemen. Shattenkirk, obviously, was acquired a couple of years ago by the Ducks from Tampa. So far this season, he has 8 assists in 28 games played. So he's obviously struggled. I mean, this whole Ducks team has struggled. But Kevin Shattenkirk has kind of been in the rumor mill. I saw rumors a couple weeks ago about him potentially being traded. So that's definitely a possibility. Teams are definitely looking at him. And the defensive market is so dry right now that they're kind of looking at anyone. So my best guess is Shattenkirk's probably going to be on his way out. And maybe the same as Dmitry Kulikov and Klingberg, too. So we'll get into them right here. Kulikov, 2 goals, 7 assists for 9 points in 29 games played. Kulikov has bounced around the league so much. Like, I looked up his name. To, like, look at some stats. And, like, there are so many different images of him on so many different teams. So he's kind of been around a lot of places, and it would make sense if he got dealt again to a different team. And then finally, John Klingberg. One of their big defensive acquisitions, one of the big defensemen on the market this past year. Klingberg so far, though, 1 goal, 7 assists for 8 points in 20 games played. Obviously, though, as I mentioned, Klingberg is hurt at time recording of this video. So, obviously, I mean, I think, honestly, and I've said it before in a couple videos, I think that maybe it would be a good idea for the Ducks to trade Klingberg. And they could honestly get a good amount for him, maybe a first-round pick, maybe a decent prospect to improve that prospect pool. Maybe that's what they're thinking here. We'll obviously see if that comes into fruition, but we'll see if Klingberg will get dealt. Now, when you look at the goaltending, now when this team has been bad over the past couple of years, one thing that was good for them was the goaltending. This year, not at all. John Gibson, who was in trade rumors in the offseason, denied he wanted to leave, but now I'm starting to think maybe he wants to change his mind. 5, 13, and 3, a 3.99 goals against average and a .894 save percentage in 21 games played. Now, that may not seem that bad on like a team like Anaheim and other really bad teams, but for John Gibson standards, that is terrible so far through over 20 games into the season. So that's definitely rough for him, but we'll see if he can turn it around, obviously. And then backup Anthony Stolarz as well as a 2.50, a 4.02 goals against average, and a .8886 save percentage in 13 games played. So, I ask you guys a question now. Is this a step backwards? No. Why would people think it's a step backwards? And I've seen some people say that the Ducks did take a step backwards this year. No, they haven't. This still is relatively the same team. I mean, they lost some players. They lost Milano. They lost Steele. They lost some solid young players, but those players were rumored to be toxic in the locker room. So you kind of wonder what happens there. But obviously, I think that's gone now. This isn't a step backwards. I think this team still needs some time to develop. They have some solid prospects. I will say that they have Drysdale, Zegras, McTavish are definitely going to lead this team on, and Troy Terry as well. But, I mean, they still have a lot of work to do before they build themselves up as a good team. And I look at them as the Devils. The Devils were expected to be good last year, but they weren't. So I think maybe this next season, they could be a team that maybe definitely has a dramatic rise up to the top, like the Devils have. So obviously there. But I think that, this is just another season of struggles for Anaheim. But we'll eventually see them turn this around. They have the amount of prospect that they could. And with the player that they get in this year's draft, they're definitely going to have a really solid team in the next couple of years. So anyways, let me know your thoughts in the Anaheim Ducks in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching. Friends, personally, I really do appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe down below if you're new. And anyways, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.